Now, we have a bit of research to show that these biomechanical models are giving us information that's similar to the in vivo studies, right? But the other piece is that this is not a perfect science. And you have to take a lot of these numbers with a grain of salt because at the end of the day, it's not like we did an in vivo study and had people squat heavy, run, jump, change direction. We didn't do that. Okay. So it's our best guess based on biomechanical models, how much stress is going through the graft. Okay. So we're not entirely sure how accurate these are. The other thing to keep in mind is that the numbers I'm going to share with you today are based on biomechanical models, right? They're not based on in vivo studies. Okay. So what did this study show? Well, we're looking at peak strain on the ACL, right? So let's say I'm doing an open chain knee extension. The peak strain is the top amount of strain that the ACL takes. Okay. And the ACL takes most stress between 0 and 30 degrees of knee extension. And this goes for the open chain and the closed chain. So if I'm doing a seated knee extension, I start at 90 and I go to 0. The most stress on the ACL is going to be somewhere between 0 and 30, and 0 to 15 is really the most. Okay. This is the same as a squat. So if I'm standing up with the weight on my back and I start to descend into a squat, the ACL is stressed most between 0 and 30 degrees of knee extension. Okay. So kind of towards the top portion of the movement. All right. The other part is that 0 degrees is considered a position of stability. All right. And what's kind of interesting to me is that after ACL reconstruction, obviously you end up doing a lot of straight leg raises, right? And if you're at 0 degrees, it's a position of stability. It's probably not that much stress on the ACL. But how many of your patients have a quad leg and they're basically sitting in 5 to 15 degrees of knee extension? They're probably putting a decent amount of stress on that ACL, right? So just a little bit of food for thought for you, okay? Now, what they found is that stress on the ACL was lowest between 150 degrees of knee extension, okay? And really, there's minimal to no strain on the ACL in these positions. So if I'm descending into a squat, after I get to around 50 or greater degrees of knee flexion, little to no stress on the ACL. Same thing goes with open chain knee extension. So if I only do an open chain knee extension between 90 and 50 degrees, that's minimal to no stress on the ACL. It's one of the reasons why you'll see in these ACL reconstruction protocols, they want you to start off with open chain knee extension through a partial range, 90 to 50, just because it's less or no stress to that ACL. Okay. The other piece is that if you want to increase stress on the ACL, increase the load. Okay. And that's a bit of a no-brainer. So I'm taking this stat directly from the study. This was an in vivo model, right? So inside of a person's knee. ACL strains during the isometric seated leg extension using a 30 Newton torque as resistance were 4.4% at 15 degrees knee angle, right? 2% at 30 degree knee angle, and no ACL strain at 60 and 90 knee angles. So as you can see, at 15 degrees, stress is highest, 30 degrees, 2%, so quite a bit lower, but still higher. And then once you get to 60 and 90, no stress on the ACL. All right. And this is the reason why you'll see folks do knee extension strength testing early on after ACL reconstruction at around 70 to 90 degrees of knee flexion, because there's literally no stress on the ACL in that degree of flexion. So let's talk about stress on the ACL during closed chain exercises. So what kind of exercise are we talking about here, right? So closed chain just simply means the foot is going to be fixed while the rest of the body moves, all right? So it's going to be your squats, split squats, step ups. Like I said, when your foot is fixed to the floor, okay? And these in general are very, very safe for the ACL graft. And the reason being is probably because there's a co-contraction of the hamstrings and the quads. And the hamstrings are going to assist the ACL or unload the ACL, okay? It's also kind of neat is that load did not change stress on the ACL. So if you go from an unloaded bodyweight squat to a 12 rep max back squat, doesn't change the amount of stress on the ACL. Okay. The second piece is that speed did not change stress on the ACL. And this was looking at stair climbing. So if you go up a stair very slowly versus up a stair very quickly, speed is not changing stress on the ACL. Okay. What else alters stress on the ACL with closed chain exercises? So Torso inclination and knee position are going to affect ACL strain. Okay. So if I'm doing a squat and I send my hips back aggressively, that's going to incline my torso. And this is going to reduce stress on the ACL. Okay. Thought process is if I send my hips back, creates more of a moment arm for my hip. Okay. The hamstrings attach to the hip. So the hamstrings are now going to be doing a bit more work, and that's going to decrease stress on the ACL. When I send my hips back, I have more of a torso inclination. It's also going to decrease the amount of work from the quads. So if I send my hips back, you have more work for the hips and hamstrings, less work for the quads, and subsequently, there's going to be less stress on the ACL. Okay. If I do the opposite, so if I have a very upright torso and I bring my knees forward, that's going to increase stress on the ACL. Thought process here is if I squat very upright, really bring my knees forward, potentially elevate the heels, I put my quads in a good position to produce force. I create a bigger moment arm for my quads, right? And I create a smaller moment arm for my hips and hamstrings. And because of that, I'm not getting the hamstring pulling the tibia posteriorly as much, and the quad is more active, and that's pulling the tibia more anteriorly. Okay. So we can modify the stress on the ACL just by changing the variation of squat that we use. In this study, they also found that if you add a heel lift, so if you squat on a slant board, use an Olympic weightlifting shoe, if you elevate the heels on top of some plates, let's say, that's going to increase stress on the ACL. Okay. And the thought process was same thing I said before. If you elevate the heels, that's going to drive the knees forward when you squat. Okay. So the further the knee goes past your toe, the more stress on the quads, the more stress on the ACL graft. Okay. And this stat came straight from the study. So increasing the heels resulted in over 3 times the ACL loading compared with squatting with the heels on the ground. Okay. And that makes sense. We're really driving that knee forward, increasing quad activity, increasing stress on ACL graft. So the same thing went for split squat exercises and single legged exercises. So if I use a very short stride in a lunge, that's going to drive my knee over the toe more quad, more ACL graft strain. Okay. If I do a single legged squat and I really send my knee far over my toe, same deal. More quad, more ACL graft strain. So here's what I want you to do next, guys. If you enjoyed this video so far, I have an entire course. It's free. It's called the Fitness Pain Free Mini Course. And we go over 3 lessons going to help you take a lot of this information that we went over so far and put it into practice. The first lecture is called Why We Need a Better System. So first and foremost, the way we treat fitness individuals, all right, athletic people in the gym from a physical therapy perspective is pretty much broke, okay? So we need a better system to serve the folks that are in the gym that get hurt, they want to get back to training, all right? Lecture number 2 is called 7 Reasons Why People Get Hurt in the Gym. And essentially, we have to know the reasons why people get hurt in the gym so we can keep them safe in the future, right? And when they get hurt, we have to know why and how to get them back to training in the gym. Okay. So a thorough understanding of this is very, very important. I actually have a really cool infographic that goes along with this lecture that you get for free as well. And lastly, we go over a case study of how to get someone out of pain and back to training. So these principles are all phenomenal, but we don't actually put it together and you don't understand how to create a program to get people back in the gym and keep them safe for the long term, then we lose, right? So I'll put a link in the show notes for this. It's a Fitness Pain Free Mini Course. Definitely check this out.